Over 700 feet of falling watermark, a 2,000-mile trail gateway. Beyond it, abandoned rail grades reveal how these ridges redirected American power. Ridges squeeze roads into gaps. Rivers pin towns to narrow banks. Coal seams, timber slopes, and mountain passes have long determined where Americans could build, work, and move. I used to think preservation meant holding the past still. Appalachia shows the opposite. Old depots become civic anchors, craft traditions enter new markets, and industrial corridors carry new traffic. Even distant cities expose where mountain water, labor, music, and raw materials went. In this video, we trace how land can preserve history, bear its pressure, and redirect its force across the nation. A mountain can change without moving a single rock. Measure it, rank it, then build a road toward its summit. At nearly 6,700 feet, Mount Mitchell is the highest summit in the United States east of the Mississippi River. In the 1830s, Professor Elisha Mitchell used barometric readings to show the Black Mountain Peak stood above Appalachian rivals. The measurement changed its public identity. Height became a recorded fact that justified conservation and brought roads and crowds uphill. Cold, wet air at this elevation supports red spruce, Fraser fir, moss, and plants, usually found much farther north. That high country refuge is under pressure. Introduced insects, polluted air, severe storms, warming, and earlier logging have all damaged the forest. North Carolina made Mount Mitchell its first state park in 1915. Protection followed measurement, knowing the summit's rank created a reason to defend it. Scenic road, short path, and observation platform now turn that scientific record into public access. Engineering carries crowds toward a climate once reached only by hard ascent. Yet fog and high wind can erase the view within minutes. Measurement opened and protected the summit. Weather still controls what visitors can see. A waterfall more than 700 feet high never makes one clean plunge. Georgia's tallest waterfall is broken by rock into a long chain of ledges, chutes, and cascades. Rain decides how much of that structure is exposed. Storm runoff spreads into a broad torrent. Dry weather reveals the rock and divides the creek into narrow channels. Access here had to be built against the slope. Bridges, overlooks, approach trails, and hundreds of stairs turn a visit into a measured climb from base to middle slope and upper rim. The same ground also sets the opening terms for a larger test. Amicalola is the traditional start of the roughly 9-mile approach to Springer Mountain, southern terminus of the Appalachian Trail. From there, a long-distance journey of more than 2,000 miles begins with abrupt grades, wet surfaces, variable weather, and a loaded pack pulling backward. Day visitors and through hikers share a trailhead, not the same task. One can stop at an overlook. The other must learn immediately that this terrain controls effort, pace, and direction. Water, stairs, and grade make the first lesson physical. The Appalachian Trail begins only after hikers accept the land's terms. a mountain town, built around wilderness, now carries an urban load in a valley with almost no room to spread. Millions of annual visitors funnel through Gatlinburg at one of the busiest entrances to Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Once called White Oak Flats, the settlement changed sharply after the park was created in the 1930s and automobile travel expanded. Isolation became a concentrated visitor economy. Hotels, parking structures, aerial lifts, and the pedestrian sky bridge force heavy infrastructure onto scarce flat ground. Protected forest begins close to commercial streets. Along an 8-mile loop, potters, woodworkers, weavers, painters, and leatherworkers keep regional skill in production. Their workshops also turn continuity into goods for visitors. Legal distilleries make the same bargain. Moonshine moves from inherited practice into regulated retail, then leaves bottled, branded, and taxed. Tourism brings jobs and revenue, but also congestion, seasonal labor demand, housing pressure, waste, and difficult wildlife encounters. The wildfire of 2016 exposed the physical stakes. Drought, wind, forest fuel, and dense development compress town and park at once. Gatlinburg preserves mountain identity by making it work, adapt, and hold ground inside a crowded modern gateway. The blue veil over these mountains is built by the forest itself. Moisture and compounds released by vegetation scatter light, making each distant ridge appear bluer than the one before it. The Blue Ridge runs from Pennsylvania toward Georgia, forming the high eastern front of the southern Appalachians. Elevation stacks different worlds onto the same slopes, from oak-rich valleys to spruce and fir on the highest summits. Crossing that wall demanded more than asphalt. The Blue Ridge Parkway runs nearly 500 miles, backed by tunnels, stone overlooks, access roads, and the Lynn Cove Viaduct, all forced into steep terrain while protecting the long views. That road did not merely open the crest. It redirected mountain income into lodging, food, music, woodworking, pottery, and weaving, trades carried through families, workshops, and guilds. Haze and mountain communities still feed one economy. Scenery creates a market, while skilled hands keep inherited methods useful for another generation. But access applies pressure. Autumn traffic crowds the roads, second home development raises property costs, and broken forest edges replace continuous habitat. The Blue Ridge remains a living archive. Its engineered crest preserves craft and hospitality while reshaping the communities that sustain them. Sice that vanished long ago still controls where water collects, roads run, and recreation expands. Across about 2,400 square miles of northeastern Pennsylvania, repeated glaciation left rounded uplands, wetlands, boulder fields, lakes, and stream valleys. This is the historic homeland of Lenape peoples. Later roads, farms, logging, railways, and small industries pressed settlements into valleys and transport corridors, where towns could hold their ground. Then access changed the region again. Better links from New York and Philadelphia helped turn the Poconos into a 20th century resort belt of lake communities, camps, ski slopes, family hotels, and honeymoon properties. Some famous resorts later closed or found new uses as travel habits, architecture, and consumer expectations shifted. The land stayed, the business model had to move. Today, hiking, paddling, waterfalls, skiing, festivals, restaurants, and artisan shops spread income across 4 seasons. That wider economy keeps towns and craft traditions active, but it also accelerates vacation housing and commercial growth. The pressure is physical: congested roads, broken wildlife habitat, and winters less dependable for snow. Forests and wetlands support metropolitan recreation while storing water that drains toward the Delaware River. The Poconos keep glacial marks intact while towns and crafts rebuild leisure around them. Mountain wall and a river bend squeezed Chattanooga so tightly that movement became its main source of power. Beneath Lookout Mountain and Missionary Ridge, scarce passage made the city a major rail junction, strategic for supplies in the 1860s. Long before those rails, the wider region carried Cherokee settlement, dispossession, and forced removal. The terrain preserved roots, but control over them repeatedly changed whose lives and goods could pass. Industry later packed the same corridor with foundries, factories, rail yards, and power works. Those engines built the economy, then loaded the air and water with severe pollution. By the mid-20th century, industrial smoke had fixed Chattanooga's national image. Cleanup, economic restructuring, and riverfront redevelopment changed that image, though older land uses were pushed aside. The Walnut Street Bridge shows how reinvention can keep the structure itself. Completed in 1891 and reopened to pedestrians in 1993, its steel trusses still bind downtown to the North Shore. Below, kayaks follow the Tennessee. Nearby, freight trains, cars, trails, and climbing routes negotiate the same narrow ground. Each route answers the pressure of ridge and water. Chattanooga keeps history and connections that still work. Two rivers meet here and create a third, but their greatest work was moving a continent's industry. At their confluence, the Allegheny and Monongahela form the Ohio, a water route that linked Appalachian coal, timber, labor, and manufactured goods with distant markets. River traffic and railways fed coke ovens, furnaces, and steel mills. Smoke, heat, shift work, immigration, and labor conflict then shaped entire neighborhoods. Steep hills made the industrial machine harder to build, forcing homes onto narrow terraces while bridges, tunnels, stairways, and inclines carried workers between river valleys and hilltop districts. Mills claimed flat land along the water, placing communities close to both wages and pollution. Geography packed prosperity and pressure into one corridor. When heavy industry declined after the mid-20th century, jobs vanished and industrial land emptied. The city had to rebuild without erasing the structures that had built it. Smoke controls, mine water treatment, and river cleanup changed Pittsburgh's physical image, though environmental burdens remained uneven. Warehouses and former mill sites became housing, trails, offices, cultural spaces, universities, and medical or technology centers. The continuity is physical. Rivers, bridges, row houses, and a revived downtown do not break from industrial Pittsburgh. They make its reinvention readable. The Catskills look like a mountain chain, but they are an elevated plateau. Streams, frost, and prolonged erosion cut that high ground into steep cloves, ledges, waterfalls, and forested summits. The region is part of the homeland of Munsee-speaking Lenape peoples. Dutch and other colonial settlements came later in its valleys. In the 19th century, Hudson River school painters turned these slopes into a national cultural symbol. They selected light, weather, farms, and distant peaks rather than simply copying the land. Their paintings did more than preserve a view. They taught a country which landscape should count as distinctly American. Railways, boarding houses, hotels, and resorts later connected the mountains to generations from New York City. The land became livelihood and retreat. The Catskill Park never sealed all of this behind a wilderness boundary. Its blue line encloses public forest preserve beside private towns, roads, farms, and working land. The protected watersheds supply a major share of New York City's drinking water, turning local land use into a continuing negotiation between mountain communities and millions of urban taps. Galleries, music venues, and reused resorts continue that work. Lenape Homeland, Colonial Valleys, Painted Icon, and Living Arts remain active on the same ground. Johnson City's railway age did not vanish. It changed speed and changed cargo. Roughly 10-mile rail corridor now carries walkers and cyclists between Johnson City and Elizabethton, while the old grade still records the engineer's route through the foothills. The city first grew around 19th century railway junctions that linked northeast Tennessee and neighboring Appalachian valleys. Timber, minerals, farm products, workers and passengers moved outward. Larger markets reached back. That transport function shaped downtown before shops, restaurants, breweries, galleries, and music rooms took over many older spaces. The storefronts endure because trade, food, and performance keep their doors useful. The Tweetsie Trail makes the conversion physical. Regular trains have yielded to feet and bicycles, yet the measured slope still exposes how rail builders negotiated hard terrain. East Tennessee State University drives another circulation: students, medicine, research, and performance. Its archives of Appalachia holds recordings, manuscripts, photographs, and oral histories, keeping evidence close to the communities that produced it. An archive can preserve a recording after the people and venues that made it have disappeared. Here, old-time bluegrass, country, and newer music return through performance, while the city serves surrounding communities through healthcare, education, and trade. Johnson City preserves history by keeping it in motion. A narrowing river has spent millions of years cutting a gorge more than 1,400 feet deep. The Linville River drops through several stages before entering one of the deepest and most rugged gorges in the eastern United States. The river does not cut evenly. It finds fractures and weaker surfaces, while harder bedrock squeezes the current into chutes, pools, and a forceful lower plunge. That resistance explains the falls. Rock redirects water. Water returns with pressure, widening cracks, and carrying the gorge deeper across immense spans of time. Each trail reveals only part of the work. Short approaches reach the upper Cascades. Irwin's view frames the falls across the gorge, and the steep plunge basin route descends toward the river. No single overlook can explain the formation, because the walls control sight as firmly as they control movement. Understanding comes in sections measured by distance, grade, and exposed rock. After storms, water can rise quickly. Wet stone, loose ground, cliffs, and difficult escape routes turn any step beyond marked trails into a serious risk. Autumn color softens the view, never the terrain. Near the Blue Ridge Parkway, every modern path and platform follows limits cut by the river. A landscape that appears untouched is one of Appalachia's largest recoveries. Great Smoky Mountains National Park protects more than 500,000 acres after industrial logging removed much of the accessible forest. Rail lines pushed into mountain watersheds and carried accessible timber out. The forest visible now is not proof that history passed by. It is proof that regrowth was given room. Cloud and rain sustain the blue-green layers between parallel ridges and feed thousands of miles of streams across sharp elevations. Elevation supports old-growth trees, wildflowers, salamanders, and black bears. Continuity depends on variety, water, and connected forest. But this was never empty wilderness. Cherokee history and settler farms, mills, churches, cabins, and orchards remain inside the boundary. Creating the park in the 1930s required land purchases, public fundraising, and New Deal labor. It also displaced families or restricted how long some could remain. Today, more than 800 miles of trails cross recovering forest, while crowded roads, polluted air, invasive species, and climate pressure test that recovery. Old routes remain while forest and water reclaim the ground around them. In the Smokies, recovery does not erase human history, it grows around its traces. Temporary holiday promotion became the fixed mark of a railway city. Graced on Mill Mountain in 1949, the illuminated Roanoke Star still looks over the street grid, tracks, and developed valley. Below it, the settlement once called Big Lick was remade when regional rail lines met there in the 1880s. Steel routes chose where workshops, offices, freight yards, and worker neighborhoods would grow. Norfolk and Western then tied Appalachian coalfields and communities to the port at Norfolk. Roanoke did not merely sit among the Blue Ridge, it redirected labor and goods through the valley. That machinery has not been erased. The Virginia Museum of Transportation keeps locomotives and equipment tied to this engineering history, while the former passenger station holds images from the final years of steam railroading. But Roanoke's record is not locked indoors. The historic city market, galleries, breweries, architecture, and seasonal festivals keep the center in public use. Greenways and trails now link neighborhoods to Mill Mountain, turning the old divide between city and ridge into a working connection. The double record remains visible. The star, station, and rails hold their ground, while community life keeps changing what those landmarks mean. Asheville preserved much of its old downtown, partly because it could not afford to replace it. A 1920s building boom raised major Art Deco landmarks, decades of Depression-era debt, then limited large public redevelopment. City Hall and commercial towers record that boom. The Biltmore Estate records Gilded Age wealth, forestry, designed landscape, domestic labor, and tourism. Preservation here is not sealed. Regional craft institutions carry weaving, pottery, woodwork, and metalwork into exhibitions and modern markets. Along the French Broad, old warehouses became River Arts District studios. Industrial walls took on new work, holding galleries, murals, music, and a creative economy. That reinvention brought pressure with it. Higher property costs, squeezed artists, service workers, and longtime residents, the people whose labor keeps the city's culture active. The basin adds a harder limit. The French Broad and Swannanoa rivers shaped transport industry and settlement, but they also concentrated flood exposure beside mountain waterways. In 2024, Hurricane Helene damaged river districts, roads, utilities, homes, and businesses. Recovery became another form of construction, fought block by block against water and cost. Asheville's living archive works in public. Art Deco stone and historic estates still carry today's craft, art, and music. The Alleghenies look reclaimed by forest, yet that cover hides ground cut hard for timber and coal. Across 4 states, long ridges forced roads and railways into gaps, valleys, switchbacks, tunnels, and carefully engineered grades. These mountains cross Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia. Their rocks are ancient, but the land kept changing through uplift, folding, stream cutting, and prolonged erosion. Terrain dictated the industrial map. Dense forests fed logging, coal seams fed mines and coke production, and freight lines tied isolated valleys to distant industries. That connection demanded hard, repeated labor. Crews felled trees, cut grades, entered underground seams, loaded rail cars, and kept transport moving across steep ground. When extraction contracted or machines replaced workers, company towns faced lost jobs and shrinking populations. Employment disappeared faster than the industrial footprint. Regrown forest now covers many work sites. What looks untouched may conceal foundations, abandoned grades, spoil areas, and altered streams beneath trees. Recovery is real but incomplete. Cold streams and trout habitats still face sediment and acid mine drainage, even as public land supports hiking, hunting, camping, and fishing. The Alleghenies preserve both histories in the same ground, returning forest above, industrial consequences below. Knoxville protects its old commercial core by refusing to retire it. At the meeting of the Appalachian uplands and Tennessee Valley, river traffic and rail lines built a city that highways later widened. That older city still works inside Market Square, Gay Street, and the Old City. Warehouses and commercial buildings now hold restaurants, shops, homes, galleries, and performance rooms without stripping away every mark of their first use. The restored Tennessee Theater proves the point. Preservation is not fenced off. It earns its place by serving the present. Then a different layer rises over the center. The Sun Sphere and former fairgrounds retain the clearest legacy of the 1982 World's Fair, which turned railway land into public ground. The Tennessee River is not merely a waterfront. TVA dams shape navigation, power, and flood control, but they also regulate flow and habitat, making the river both public edge and managed industrial corridor. Across that corridor, the urban wilderness joins parks, forest, former quarries, historic ground, and more than 50 miles of trails close to downtown. Land once cut for extraction now carries recreation. Knoxville's method is direct. Old buildings, reclaimed land, and a working river preserve history because the city still uses them. A frontier drama has turned a North Carolina mountainside into a public argument about American origins. Since 1952, Horn in the West has used the Daniel Boone Amphitheater and surrounding ridges to retell settlement, conflict, and revolution. Boone sits above 3,300 feet, where steep slopes squeeze roads, buildings, and commerce onto scarce ground. Fog, snow, rain, and ice can quickly choke those routes. That pressure limits housing, raises costs, and forces every new structure to negotiate with the mountain. Appalachian State University began in 1899 as a teacher's school. Today, students, research, performances, and housing demand keep the town working all year. Nearby access to the Blue Ridge Parkway ski areas, rivers, waterfalls, and trails drives seasonal movement. Craft markets, old-time music, and bluegrass feed that visitor economy. Horn in the West contains its own tension. The landscape gives frontier history physical weight, yet the production also invites scrutiny of how settlers, indigenous peoples, and national origins are presented. On these ridges, the frontier story is never simply stored. University growth, tourism, and scarce land force each generation to stage it again. A town built to move coal now runs its old rail corridor to keep an industrial past in motion. During the 19th century, Mauch Chunk moved anthracite from Appalachian mines toward eastern cities and ports by gravity railroad, conventional rail, and canal. Loaded cars rolled downhill under gravity. The valley's steep walls left little level ground, so streets, tracks, businesses, and houses crowded into one narrow transport corridor. The 1888 station, Asa Packer Mansion, stone blocks, churches, and Victorian houses preserve the coal town's tight footprint. In 1954, Mauch Chunk and East Mauch Chunk merged under the name Jim Thorpe. The celebrated Native American athlete had no lifetime connection to the town, complicating its heritage. Today, heritage trains reactivate the same corridor for tourism rather than coal, hiking, cycling, rafting, museums, shops, and festivals spread that reinvention through the gorge. The change is deliberate, not clean. Preserved architecture keeps industrial wealth visible, while every moving train recalls the engineering that first bent the valley toward extraction and transport. Victorian walls and moving trains keep the coal corridor legible, but the town's adopted name leaves its heritage unresolved. Abingdon's oldest structures survived because the town kept giving them new work. 18th century streets now support theaters, galleries, shops, and hospitality, while a former railway carries walkers and cyclists for roughly 34 miles. Founded in the late 18th century, Abingdon grew along the Great Road through southwest Virginia. Trade, migration, and frontier movement made the town a corridor before preservation made it a destination. Its brick houses, churches, inns, public buildings, and commercial blocks do not freeze one colonial moment. They hold several eras, each fitted onto the last. The Barter Theater proves how pressure can redirect tradition. During the Great Depression, it opened in 1933 and allowed patrons short of cash to exchange farm produce for admission. The Martha Washington Inn carries another sequence: private residence, women's college, hospital, then hotel. One building absorbed changing social needs without surrendering its place in town. Beyond the center, the Virginia Creeper Trail follows the old railway toward the high country near Whitetop. Freight and passenger grades now guide recreation across trestles and rural communities. The way I see it, Abingdon does not preserve history as scenery. Old walls and rail grades still carry contemporary work, culture, and movement. Atlanta began not with a harbor or courthouse, but with the end of a railway that terminus fixed the city's location and linked the Piedmont to mountain communities, southern markets, and the nation. Rails moved timber, minerals, farm products, factory goods, workers, and passengers. In 1864, that strategic junction also exposed the city to enormous loss, and rebuilding restored transport as Atlanta's driving force. That old machinery remains legible in the Atlanta Beltline. A loop of former railway corridors is becoming trails, parks, housing, public art, and space reserved for possible transit. The conversion reconnects neighborhoods once divided by rail infrastructure, but access has helped push property values upward, placing displacement pressure on the communities that gave those neighborhoods their identity. Sawburn Avenue adds a different record. Black business, religion, education, and civil rights landmarks, including the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historical Park, show memory built beside the machinery of growth. Centennial Olympic Park records another turn, redevelopment tied to the 1996 Games. Atlanta repeatedly takes routes built for movement and gives them a new public purpose. Atlanta's rails, beltline, and public art preserve routes of movement, while communities keep their history visible as the city changes. Vertical power defines New York's image, but horizontal crossings and mountain water from beyond the skyline keep it alive. 5 boroughs across islands and mainland shores were bound into one city in 1898. At the Hudson's mouth, the harbor pulled timber, stone, food, fuel, and labor from the interior. The Erie Canal and regional railways turned Appalachian production into urban growth. Water divided the boroughs, so engineering had to defeat the gap. Ferries, subway tubes, road tunnels, and suspension bridges made one city function across separate ground. The Brooklyn Bridge made that struggle visible in 1883. It carried movement above the East River, while ferries kept working below. The deeper connection remains hidden. Catskill and Delaware reservoirs, aqueducts, and tunnels deliver most of New York's drinking water, largely by gravity. Behind the skyline lies dependence. Migration entered through the harbor, while mountain water and inland goods sustained the city after arrival. From the Brooklyn Bridge to the harbor ferries, New York's continuity is engineered every day. Its living archive runs through crossings that preserve old routes while redirecting American movement. Los Angeles rebuilt long stretches of its river as a rapid flood route. After 1930s floods, engineers encased much of the channel in concrete to force stormwater through developed land. That channel exposes the bargain beneath Los Angeles. Flood control protected expansion, but hardened the river and restricted habitat and public access. Growth required water from elsewhere as well. The Los Angeles Aqueduct opened in 1913, enabling vast development in a dry region while shifting environmental costs to distant watersheds. The city then spread across the basin and coastal plain, driven by streetcars, automobiles, freeways, annexation, and many employment centers. Downtown's towers rose as a concentrated exception. Mountains still confine that horizontal growth. Drought, extreme heat, wildfire earthquakes, and smog mark limits that concrete and imported water cannot fully remove. Appalachian and Southern migrants entered this landscape during the Depression, wartime industrial expansion, and the post-war years. They carried labor, experience, faith, foodways, craft knowledge in string band or country music west. The clearest record lies in the contrast between the low urban plain, the concrete river channel, and downtown's tight skyline. Together, they show migration and hard engineering rebuilding a dry basin at metropolitan scale. Single headland turns an open Pacific coast into a sheltered working harbor. Point Loma protects the entrance to San Diego Bay, facing naval facilities, commercial docks, downtown, and inland mountains at one narrow threshold. Appalachian gaps concentrate routes between ridges. San Diego's mesas, canyons, border, and bay impose a coastal version of the same routing pressure. This is Kumeyaay homeland. Spanish colonization began locally in 1769 with a presidio and mission, bringing profound disruption to indigenous communities. Later development spread across mesas split by steep canyons. Roads and freeways had to bridge those breaks or follow them, making topography a daily routing command. The harbor concentrated naval operations, shipbuilding, fishing, trade, migration, and waterfront labor. Coastal shelter became economic leverage, tying the city to military power and binational exchange. Balboa Park preserves a calculated reinvention. Exposition buildings from 1915 and 16 later became museums, giving booster architecture a permanent civic job. Point Loma still narrows entry to the harbor, while Balboa Park keeps an earlier civic sales pitch in public use. Coastal terrain directs both the working port and the history displayed above it. Nashville is where an Appalachian river and converging transport routes turned rural music into national industry. The Cumberland begins in Appalachian Kentucky. Roads and railways then brought performers, workers, instruments, printed material, and goods into Nashville. Those routes did more than move cargo. They concentrated ballads, fiddle tunes, sacred music, and string band traditions beside publishers, studios, managers, venues, and radio networks. The Grand Ole Opry began as a radio program in 1925. From 1943 to 1974, the Ryman Auditorium gave that broadcast a principal home and regional sound a mass audience. Lower Broadway carried the performance economy into former commercial buildings and honky-tonks. Working venues keep music in circulation, but intensive tourism, rising property values, and redevelopment have changed the district's labor and audience. The Cumberland gives Nashville a corridor, but its banks also carry flood exposure. Bridges and public space share that narrow ground beneath the concentrated downtown skyline. Even the full-scale Parthenon, rebuilt in permanent materials after Tennessee's 1897 exposition, declares Nashville's urge to turn temporary display into lasting civic identity. Lower Broadway, the Ryman, and the Cumberland reveal the larger pattern. Mountain rivers and transport routes preserved regional music by moving it until inheritance became national industry. Water built New Orleans's continental reach. Survival now depends on holding that water back. More than 3 centuries ago, New Orleans occupied raised ground on a Mississippi bend. Growth pushed into low terrain defended by pumps, canals, flood walls, and levees. The water arriving here carries Appalachian history. The Ohio and Tennessee systems drain mountain country before joining the Mississippi and reaching the Gulf. That current moved coal, timber, farm goods, manufactured products, and migrants. Remote valleys became tied to a delta port and Gulf trade. The French Quarter holds another layer. Narrow lots, courtyards, Creole townhouses, and iron galleries shaped by colonial rule, then reworked by many cultures. Jackson Square and St. Louis Cathedral face the river because ceremony and commerce grew from the same bank. The St. Charles Avenue streetcar crosses neighborhoods from different periods and elevations. Daily transit keeps urban expansion legible. The riverfront levee is both public ground and working defense. Hurricane Katrina exposed failed protection and unequal flood pressure across the low city. Every facade rests on the same bargain. Water creates exchange, then demands control. Creole streets, streetcars, and levees keep the record visible, but unequal flood risk decides who can safely remain on delta ground. One of Miami's strongest records of migration stands inside a waterfront skyline built to replace yesterday. The 1925 Freedom Tower began as a newspaper headquarters, then became a processing and assistance center for Cuban refugees. That change of purpose matters. A Mediterranean revival landmark became civic evidence. Print, arrival, help, and community change recorded within the same walls. Different record survives at Vizcaya, built in the 1910s as an industrialist's winter estate. Its formal gardens and adapted European design preserve the ambitions of an earlier Miami. Yet the ground beneath both places is low, porous limestone. Water does not remain at the edge. Tidal flooding and storm surge press into the city through its geography. This is Miami's answer to the Appalachian Ridge. Mountains channel roads through passes, Biscayne Bay, the Miami River, and fragile coastal ground channel towers, bridges, boats, and access. Henry Flagler's railway reached the settlement in 1896, the year Miami incorporated. Steel rails opened northern markets and accelerated migration, tourism, and construction. What stands out is that older lives remain legible here. Freedom Tower and Vizcaya keep Miami's ambitions and arrivals in the path of new construction. Steep streets are not a backdrop in San Francisco. They are part of the transport machinery. From the 1870s, underground moving cables hauled cars up grades that had defeated horse-drawn transport. This compact peninsula is Ohlone homeland, but after 1849, gold rush migration loaded the waterfront with ships, warehouses, merchants, laborers, and international trade. As in Appalachia, terrain dictates both route and machine. Water demanded piers and ferries. Hills forced movement onto cables and rails. The ferry building became the principal regional gateway in 1898. Then bridges redirected much cross-bay traffic, and the Golden Gate Bridge opened in 1937, creating a massive northern connection. The ground kept imposing new terms. Reconstruction after the 1906 earthquake changed structures and building practices, yet the basic street grid held. Another rupture came in 1989 when the Loma Prieta earthquake damaged the elevated Embarcadero Freeway. Removing it reopened sections of the waterfront to pedestrians and public life. Here, preservation is mechanical and daily. Cable cars, the ferry building, and the piers keep the city's infrastructure history inside bayfront life, recording how each generation met the same hard barriers and redirected movement. Retired neon signs hold some of Las Vegas's clearest history, even after they stop advertising. The Neon Museum preserves retired markers from casinos, motels, restaurants, and other businesses, artifacts from an economy built on demolition and rebranding. Neon is more than decoration here. Glass tubes, transformers, metal frames, and letterforms record electrical craft, labor, and changing commercial taste. Fremont Street carries the same argument. The early casino corridor now sits beneath an illuminated canopy, while older facades hold their ground below. This is downtown, not the Strip. Most of that famous resort corridor lies outside city limits in unincorporated Clark County. Before the spectacle, Springs supported indigenous use, travelers, and ranching across this Mojave Valley. The modern town emerged around a railway land sale in 1905. Legalized gambling, Hoover Dam construction, military spending, conventions, and automobile tourism then drove expansion. Every wave demanded new structures and pushed the previous layer aside. That reinvention carries a physical bill. Extreme summer heat, heavy electricity demand, rapid growth, and constrained Colorado River water support every illuminated replacement. Retired signs work like Appalachian industrial traces. At the Neon Museum, they record urban labor and electrical technology after the economy moves on. Remove the mountain walls and tourism takes a different shape. Across Orlando's low, wet interior, growth spread outward after Walt Disney World opened southwest of the city in 1971, while historic downtown remained a separate civic core. Gatlinburg compresses tourism into a narrow mountain valley. Orlando disperses it across lakes, wetlands, sandy terrain, and metropolitan roads. That spread does not run on scenery alone. Drainage works, commuter rail, convention facilities, and air-conditioned complexes keep people and commerce moving through intense rain and summer heat, while dispersed growth adds traffic and wetland loss. Lake Eola makes the bargain visible. A sinkhole lake became a public center, held together by a walking path, amphitheater, fountain, skyline, and daily civic use. Church Street Station preserves another layer, the railway era that helped organize citrus trade, government, and commerce. Today, the modern Sunrail route runs beside that older marker. The Dr. Phillips Center carries the link forward, tying performing arts and City Hall to the wider metropolitan visitor economy. Lake Eola and Church Street give the dispersed visitor metropolis a civic center, binding public life to water and an older railway route. A highway here leaves the pavement and becomes a fleet of ferries. Washington State ferries carry passengers and vehicles across Puget Sound, avoiding the long detours imposed by water. Seattle occupies a hilly corridor between Puget Sound and Lake Washington. Glacial slopes and north-south ridges still steer roads and neighborhoods, long after engineers cut hills and filled tide flats. In 1917, the Lake Washington Ship Canal opened a passage between fresh water and the Sound. The terrain set the barrier, engineering forced a route through it. That route feeds a waterfront of freight, fishing, ship repair, ferries, and maritime jobs. As in Appalachia, scenery cannot be separated from labor. The water demands the labor. Pike Place Market carries the same argument onto land. Founded in 1907, it protected direct trade between producers and city customers while facing repeated redevelopment pressure. Above it, the Space Needle records the futuristic ambition of the 1962 World's Fair. Below, docks and vessels keep the older maritime economy in motion every day. Ferries depart vendors' trade, and working piers hold their ground between the water and the growing skyline. Seattle's maritime record survives as daily labor. The calmest-looking water in San Antonio depends on gates and a bypass built for its strongest surges. After the major 1921 flood, engineers reshaped a downtown bend. Then civic builders added stone paths, bridges, stairs, planting, and public access. Long before that construction, indigenous communities used these waters and landscapes. In the early 18th century, Spanish settlers established a presidio, a civilian settlement, and missions around the same water supply. The Alamo began as Mission San Antonio de Valero. Events in 1836 later gave the structure another historical role. Farther south, 4 mission complexes retain churches, walls, fields, and portions of Esquia irrigation channels that directed river water toward crops and settlements. Together, the 5 missions form a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Their preservation must also hold the harder record of colonial conversion, labor, conflict, and indigenous persistence. Appalachian towns often follow free-running rivers through narrow valleys. San Antonio shows the opposite pressure. In a dry climate, settlement follows managed channels that feed crops, restrain floods, and preserve the city's history. Here, the river, River Walk, Alamo, and mission churches keep the city's archive inside working paths and structures, where every generation must preserve history by managing water. The mountains helped build Philadelphia without ever entering its skyline. Anthracite coal traveled from Pennsylvania's Appalachian fields by river, canal, and rail, feeding urban factories, homes, and port traffic. That hidden supply line joins a much older civic frame. In 1682, William Penn laid a rectangular grid and 5 public squares between the Delaware and Schuylkill rivers. Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell anchor the Revolutionary chapter, but the streets keep that history from standing alone. They carry it into later districts of work and government. City Hall rose around the turn of the 20th century beneath William Penn's statue. Its mass shifted the civic center without breaking the grid that organized the colonial city. The Benjamin Franklin Parkway cut diagonally across that order. Running from City Hall toward the Philadelphia Museum of Art, it joined government, libraries, museums, monuments, and parkland. Beyond those institutions, row houses show where industrial growth became daily life. Along the Delaware, redevelopment reopens former port land while thinning some visible traces of shipbuilding, immigration, and industry. Philadelphia's living archive is not locked inside one landmark. It is the street network, carrying the historic core through City Hall, the museums, and the Delaware riverfront. Chicago forced a river to run backward, then built a vertical city above the altered current. In 1900, engineers reversed the Chicago River as part of a vast sanitation project designed to protect Lake Michigan drinking water. Low Divide joins the Great Lakes and Mississippi watersheds. Canals, railways, shipping, and factories turned that opening into an industrial metropolis. Appalachian coal arrived by rail to feed Great Lakes factories. Workers followed those routes north, carrying music, churches, foodways, speech, and labor traditions into Uptown. The so-called Hillbilly Highway was not one road. It was a chain of employment routes joining mountain families to factory districts. Post-fire rebuilding, high land values, elevators, and steel frames pushed architects upward. Tall commercial buildings answered pressure on the ground. Movable bridges negotiate between traffic and the river, while elevated CTA trains claim another transport level above loop streets. Riverwalk towers record experiments in structure, height, and land value. Beneath them, freight, water control, fuel, and labor remain the foundation. Chicago's skyline is not detached from Appalachia. Mountain coal and migrant labor helped raise it. Bridges, elevated rails, and the reversed river show that passage becoming a new urban system. Some of Boston's most orderly streets stand on ground that was once tidal water. During the 19th century, Back Bay was filled and gridded beside colonial lanes that still resist straight lines. That manufactured ground now faces renewed coastal flooding. The city began on the hilly Shawmut Peninsula, where streets formed around the harbor. As population and commerce grew, residents cut down hills, filled coves, extended wharves, and manufactured more land. The Freedom Trail later bound different revolutionary sites with a painted red route. Ordinary streets became a public record, keeping national history inside the daily movement of the city. Boston Common and the Public Garden held open ground beside the dense core. Along the Charles, later river management created the Esplanade and shifted the shoreline toward public recreation. Modern engineering cut another layer. Harbor cleanup and the Big Dig removed elevated highway infrastructure from parts of central Boston, restoring surface connections without erasing the older street plan. Boston also helped organize how Americans entered the northern Appalachians. Founded here in 1876, the Appalachian Mountain Club shaped trail building, mapping, huts, outdoor education, scientific observation, and conservation across New England's ranges. Boston keeps colonial lanes, reclaimed land, and renewed waterfronts together as one continuous urban record. Austin turned a dammed river into public ground, then watched wildlife claim the concrete. Lady Bird Lake is a reservoir created by Longhorn Dam in 1960, while crevices beneath the rebuilt Congress Avenue Bridge became seasonal roosts for Mexican free-tailed bats. The city rose where the Colorado River meets the eastern edge of Texas Hill Country. Growth now presses that water under extreme heat and drought. Trails, parks, rowing, and paddling turned engineered water into shared civic ground. Concrete did not remove nature, it opened a new foothold. North of the water, the pink granite Texas State Capitol, completed in 1888, holds a formal axis through a skyline transformed by rapid economic and population growth. Culture moved along regional routes as well. Appalachian ballads, fiddle tunes, sacred music and string bands fed American country music. Texas added border, cowboy blues, swing, and dance hall traditions. In Austin, inherited music became part of a modern city whose growth now strains traffic, housing, water, and public space. Bats settle into bridge concrete while the capital holds its axis beyond the water. Austin keeps redirecting river and culture, but heat, housing, and growth make that balance harder to hold. The capital's grandest ceremonial lines rest on river margins that engineers had to remake. Parts of the National Mall, Potomac Park, and the tidal basin occupy filled or engineered ground where wetlands once resisted the formal plan. In 1791, Pierre L'Enfant laid diagonal avenues and ceremonial sightlines over a street grid. The Capitol and White House became fixed anchors for movement and power. But the deeper route enters from Appalachia. The Potomac's headwaters and major tributaries rise among mountain ridges, then carry that water through the capital toward Chesapeake Bay. Mountain water reaches a city that organizes memory through distance and alignment. Together, the Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial, Smithsonian museums, and later memorials turned the mall into a national record that keeps expanding. Bridges, seawalls, flood defenses, and managed shorelines expose the physical pressure beneath the symbols. Cherry trees and river paths add seasonal use, but the banks remain engineered ground. The Anacostia waterfront carries a harder record: industry, segregation, cleanup, and unequal access. Neighborhoods, markets, universities, and transit keep the capital working beyond its monumental core. The planned avenues, national landmarks, and two waterfronts make civic memory physical, cut into urban ground, then renewed by repeated public movement. My takeaway is plain. In Appalachia, preservation cannot mean freezing a town, a railway, or a craft at one chosen date. The ridges still constrain roads, rivers still gather trade and floodwater, old industrial ground still shapes who can build, earn, and remain. When communities reuse depots, bridges, theaters, mills, and trails, they do more than save attractive structures. They keep evidence in public reach. That evidence matters as outside money, tourism storms, and new industries press harder on mountain ground. Erase the grade, bury the foundation, or strip the craft from its working setting, and a nation loses the map of how its power was assembled. The way I see it, Appalachia is not a sealed past. It is a living archive that still redirects the American future. Continue with this documentary series as it reads roads, rivers, buildings, and working ground as evidence and asks who gets to carry that evidence into the next era of American change.